So today's session is going to be on account administration. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about public processes, a little more about what are those and how you use them and what they're for. And then if there's time remaining, I'm going to start to discuss process assignment, which is our newest feature. Next week, the whole hour is going to be about the control panel and management review. So everything here on the dashboard, which also includes process assignment. But again, if we have time, I want to get into that just a little bit, because my hope is those of you who are on the line that haven't really set up users yet or well and haven't used process assignment, maybe you could play around with it between now and next week and then come with some questions or just kind of understand it more. So to get to account administration, it's all the way to the right-hand side of the screen. And when I click this little wheel icon, I should see user accounts and account settings. If you click here and you don't see this area, it's because you're not an administrator. So only administrators have access to this account administration area. But I still think that this session is useful for you, because you can, if you're a manager on the line or even a staff employee, you can kind of understand the setup of TouchStone more and kind of how rights and views are established. So I'm going to go here to the wheel icon again, and I'm going to start here with account settings. So this is the account settings feature, and it basically just controls your business name, which mine says training right here. And you should also see your address here with phone number and email. You can edit it just by highlighting the piece you want to edit and then typing over it and hitting save. Over here to the right, this display company name button, if you click this and then the screen refreshes, and when my logo is white, so you don't see it, but it would appear here in this section called display name. So if you see your name displayed next to your logo and you don't want it there, all you do is go here and uncheck this box that says display company name. So the main features here in account settings have to do with the header here and the colors of your banner and also your text. So my header color is white right here, and I see it because it's got this little white section. If I wanted to change it, I go down and choose the appropriate color, and then I hit save, and this banner will change. Text color, same thing. When I hit the text color, mine's black right here. And if I wanted to change it to a different color, I change the text color and hit save. And then again, here's this display company name. That's if you want the company name to be displayed or not. And then you just hit this little save button. So now you see where it says training right here. So this is controlled by this field. So if I typed in something else, like I want to change the business settings and I hit save, then you can see this changes. If you have your company name in your logo, like we do here, then this kind of becomes redundant. So that's why you might choose to uncheck this box that says display company name and save, and then it disappears. To put your logo in the upper right-hand corner, we do this now for new accounts, but if you've had your account for a while and this was never done, then you might not see it here in this left-hand side. Really simple. All you need to do is drag and drop your logo here, or you can click and then find it. And then once you do that, you hit save, and then it will just appear in the upper left-hand corner. Pretty easy. If you don't have an actual logo created in a file that's easy to find, you can always use your snipping tool like this, and you can just go up and highlight it like that. Super easy, off your website even, save it, and then drag that and drop that image into this field and it uploads. I think it's nice to customize the look and feel of the header of your account, just so when your employees log in, they see something that looks familiar. So now let's go past here and go to user accounts. So boom, if any of you have seen this in its earlier version, it didn't look like this. It was kind of in an old user interface, which has been improved, and the features and the functionality have been improved as well. So here in account administration, this is where you create your users. So you create usernames and passwords for your employees to log into TouchStone. You restrict their access to TouchStone using user access here. So you can choose create or create or read only access for each employee that logs in. Then you also set control panels here as well. So this is that control panel area. So this is all about the ability to give your employees access to use TouchStone. So why would they want to use TouchStone, or why would you give them login access? The number one reason clearly is for training purposes. So when you have a new employee or even your existing employees, you want them to be able to come to this repository, in a sense, of all of your SOPs, all of your procedure, all of your policy. In addition, when they come to view all of the procedures, policies, information about your company, it is then scaled back to just what's relevant to them. That's what user access is. So for training purposes, clearly having the employees be able to log in is hugely beneficial. The other reason is for management purposes, guidance. And we've been talking a lot about this over the last 6 weeks, and we're going to continue on with that conversation today. Policy or procedures really help management. They help management in terms of getting your employees to do what they're supposed to do, nurturing and valuing their skills and showing them their opportunities and what they need to learn to grow within your company, allowing them a place to come to be reminded of what to do. Sometimes employees get, embarrassed maybe, or they don't want to bother their manager. They feel like, gosh, I should know that by now. And then that's when mistakes are made, because they just go after it. And if they have initiative, they're just going to try to fake it till they make it. Well, this alleviates that for employees, because being able to log in and see their processes, that can be the reminder that they need without having to go to their manager. So all these wonderful reasons for setting up your usernames, your employees in TouchStone. In addition, since COVID, we've made users unlimited, so you don't pay more for adding more employees. That might change at some point, but it will never pertain to you. So you all have free users. And with that in mind, there's really no reason, not to set them up. I'm going to show you as we go through this how easy the user interface is for read-only users and even create users. So if you set it up correctly, like we're going to go through, it shouldn't be overwhelming when your employees log in either. So first thing is to create or add a user, you just click this little plus sign right here. Click. Then you want to choose the user type. So you make the person an admin user or a regular user. An admin user is a person that has access to everything in TouchStone and can do everything, including coming here to account administration and changing your employees' user access. So this should be reserved for either the owner of the company, the CEO, the president, or your TouchStone power user, we call it sometimes. So could be an administrative position that is in charge of keeping the TouchStone account in shape, maybe adding things to it, editing things. Sometimes businesses choose to have a person like that, because rather than managers going in and kind of updating things on their own, which I think is a good idea if they know how to do, but setting that aside, they can send that information for updates to this power user that would enter it. So admin user, or I see Alex, I see your question. I'm gonna stop and answer your question because I think it's a good one if you popped in late. So this is the dashboard. This is what we see when we first log in. To get to account administration, I go all the way over to the right-hand side. I click this wheel icon, and then I go to user accounts. Again, if you don't see this wheel icon, it's because you're not an administrator. This might look different to you, Alex, because this was just updated with a better look and feel and ease of use. So to add a user, I hit this little add user. I choose if it's admin or just a regular user. We're going to make this person a regular user. And then I'm going to put in the first name and last name. Super easy. Then I'm going to put in their email address, which is actually their username. So this email address should be a valid email address. And obviously this isn't one, but this should be a valid email address because this is how process assignment communicates with the employee. So they log in with this username and password that I'm about to enter. And then they also get assignment notifications to that email address. So now I just added this person and it's going to go in alphabetical order. So just because this Smith is the last name, that's why it appears here on the bottom. So one more shout out about this email address, this username. And we've chosen to call it email address instead of username so that people will put in real email addresses. Your employee's ability to get notification emails, so when a process has been assigned to them, it will go to this username right here. So if this is not a real email address, then they're not going to get those assignments. In addition, when they log into TouchStone, if they forget their password and they go to password recovery, well, this is where that recovered password is sent, and which would go nowhere if it wasn't a real email address. So you see from the side here, this little person icon, that I've made Tom a regular user. Administrators have the green key. So these two people are administrators. And then the yellow key is always what we call the key account holder. So this is the person who established the TouchStone account. If I want to edit a user, I just click right on it and the field's open for me to edit. So if I made Tom a user and then I decide later, well, I really want him to be the administrator, I can just choose admin here in this field and then hit save. And then it's just remembering my last password. And then I hit save and it updates, and now Tom's an administrator. Some of you, after listening to this session, might decide to make some employees who are admin users based on what we're going to talk about. If you choose to do that, again, it's really easy. You just click the name here to edit, and then you change it to user and hit save, and then they flip back to a user. Now, if someone is a user, that means that you have to establish their access to TouchStone. So the administrator, like me here, has access to everything. And if I want to establish access for everyone who has this little person icon because they need to be given access. If you just add them and then you move on, when they log in, they're not going to be able to really see or do anything because they won't have access to anything. They'll see the org chart, but it'll be all grayed out. So to add access, you just click this little user access pencil. Now I'm seeing my organization chart, and you'll see your organization chart here. If you scroll up and down, you can see the top and the bottom of the chart. So TouchStone establishes access by position on the org chart. So I give that person access to a position on the org chart or to multiple positions. When I give that person access to a position on the org chart, I'm giving them access to all the processes that are on that job description. So what I mean is, if we go over here to the org chart, I'm an admin user, so I've got access to everything. That's why all of this is illuminated. So if I give this user access to the salesperson's job description because they are a salesperson, I'm then giving them access to all the processes here that are linked to this job description. They don't have access to anything else other than the processes that are linked to this job description. So let's go back and then back to Sam here. So you want to decide, what position does Sam fill? So let's say he's a salesperson. So we click sales. Then you need to decide, are you going to give him read-only access to sales, or are you going to give him create access? So read-only means he can only read what you've given him access to. So he can only read the processes on the salesperson's job description. If I give him create, that doesn't mean that he can create anything anywhere. All that means is he can create things on his own job description. So he can add new processes to it. He could go to a process and add a work plan, add a checklist. He could edit anything that's there. In the old version of account administration, we did have an edit option, which has been removed because it wasn't used very often, and it's simpler to do it this way. So create now means edit, if you're used to what that edit definition was. They can't delete anything from anywhere. So only administrators can delete, but they can add new things and they can edit and change what's there. So I'm going to give him access, read-only access, and then I hit update. So now I can see from the org chart that he has read-only access to this position. So then I'm going to hit done. Once you've given someone read-only access to their position, you want to then go and give them a control panel. So access means the access that they have to that job description, to those processes. The control panel is on the dashboard, and that's where employees go to actually use their processes. So this will make more sense in a minute. So I'm going to give him a control panel for this position, and I have to decide, is this a managerial control panel or a staff position? This is staff because it doesn't manage anyone else. Then I hit staff, and then I hit update. So now he's got a staff assignment to this position, and then I'm going to X out of this. So now let's log in as Sam here so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to log out completely with me, and then I've already got it set up here. I'm going to log in as Sam. So now I'm logged in as Sam, and the first thing you'll notice is that I see my control panel here. If I go to the organization chart, I then see my position illuminated. And because this position is underneath the sales position on the org chart, I also have access to this position. So when you give an assignment to a position that has a box underneath it, like a managerial role, then the person is also going to have accesses to the position underneath this. Now you can go and change this if you want to, but it defaults to that, because it's kind of implied that if I'm the salesperson, I would have started here as sales assistant, or at minimum, I would know all the processes on this job description. And now I'm moving up to this position, and now I'm learning and knowing these processes. Same with this kind of setup. I start here as the apprentice, then I move here, then I move here. So it would make sense if I'm here, then I also know these two roles. And it's also nice for when employees fill in for other employees, or if, like, let's say I'm the salesperson and the assistant's out for a week and I have to do something that was on the assistant's role because they're not here and I can't quite remember how to do it because I haven't done it in a long time. Well, I can go here to this job description and I can review those processes. So let's go back to the dashboard. So I also, because I've been given a control panel assignment, I also see my control panel here. And when I select it, I then see all of my processes. So let's go, I forgot one thing. Let's go back here to the org chart. If I select this role here, salesperson, you notice all the functionality up here is gone. All I can do is send print this if I want to. Sometimes people want to eliminate this ability to send print, but we've tracked that over the years, and this can be printed anyway. I mean, I could highlight this whole thing and print it if I wanted to, whether this was here or not. And it makes more sense to have kind of a cleaner print feature or export feature if that's needed. So if I go to a process like, let's go to this one, I see the content that's in this process. So I see these work plans and I see these uploaded files. Now here's the thing. Because I have read-only access and I'm not going to be editing or changing anything, when I click my processes from the org chart, it loops me back to the dashboard. So you can see up here, dashboard salesperson. And when I go here to click this work plan, I can read this, I can see it. I'm using it on the dashboard. So I'll show you that again. Because I have read-only access, if I click this position on my job description on the org chart, I see my job description, which is essentially all the processes that are on the dashboard. And if I click a process from here, it takes me right back to the dashboard. So it's kind of the same thing as here, going here and clicking that same process. I'm going to the same place. So this is part of the simplification that happens for read-only users. You'll notice there's no 4 key functions over here, like they can't even get there. They don't need to know that. They don't need to know that organization. It just makes it more to learn. They are able to access their org chart because you want your employees to be able to see the organization structure. And they are able to click on their position and see their job description, which is essentially the same thing that they're seeing through their control panel. But we allow them to see this view. But when they click on a process, it's looping them back to their dashboard. So in a sense, unless they want to go to the org chart to see that and view it, they're really just using TouchStone through the dashboard. They're going here and they're clicking here. It's all mobile compliant. Again, they can look at this for review purposes, but this is only the functionality that they need to be trained on and learn how to use. So I'm going to log out as this person and go back to me here. So now I'm logged back in as the admin user, and I'm going to go back here to user accounts. And now let's click back here on Sam. Oops, wrong place. So let's go over here to Sam and let's add some more to his user access. So he's got the read-only access to this. Let's give him create access to a whole nother department. So let's give him create access to this manager of operations. And I'm going to hit create and then I hit update. Now remember that it's going to default and give him access to all the positions underneath him. And when you see it this way, it really makes sense because if I'm the manager here, if I'm going to manage my employees with processes, if I'm going to be accountable for those processes that they use, then I need to have access to them, clearly. So typically speaking, a manager should have create access to their subordinate positions processes because of what I just said. If they're going to be editing, building new things, they need to be able to get into TouchStone and make those changes and really own those processes. But they don't need to have access to all the rest of this stuff. So let's just hit done there. And now let's log back in as Sam. So I'm logging back in as Sam again. None of this has changed because I didn't change anything about control panels. But if I go to the org chart here, I'm going to see that now he has access to all of these boxes and positions. In addition, if I click on this, and then I click on a process here, now I'm on the process tools page. So now this is where I could go in and edit things and change things. I can click a work plan here and I can edit and change this work plan on collections. I can add a new work plan. I can upload videos. So a create user, this is what it means by create. They can go to the processes, to the job descriptions that they have been given access to, and they can edit and change things. Now, one technique, if you're going to give your managers create access, which I think you should, before they would edit and change anything, like if I wanted to make this collections process better, have them archive it. So they go archive, boom, now it's in the archive, and then they can go back and edit and change it. So by archiving things, you're keeping the original version of it, and then they can go in and edit and make changes. And if you decide they've done that incorrectly or wrong, then you can restore from the archive. So let's go back here for a second. So if you have a manager, I would suggest you give them create access to their position, which then gives them create access to all the boxes underneath them. If they're a non-manager and you don't want them to be documenting anything, that they purely are going to use what's there, they can comment on what's there, but they can't change anything themselves, then give them read-only access like we've done here. Now, it could be a combination of access. So I may be the manager here, and so I need access to all of this, but let's say I fill in for customer service, or I fill in for this managerial position when they're gone. Then you could give read-only access to that position. So this is another better way to explain it. If I'm the operations manager, but I fill in for sales when that person is gone for whatever reason, then I would get access to these positions right here and also my own. So multiple access. Well, let's log out of this. The best way to really understand this, if you're struggling, is to set up a scenario inside your own account. So create something over here in account administration and log in as that person and take a look at what it looks like. I'll just make this point again because I didn't show you, but create only users can't delete anything. So here, the administrators can delete, the non-administrators cannot. They can go to a process, so they can go to a process and delete a work plan in it, say, but it puts it into this deleted folder. So it's not, actually gone. So they can go and kind of clean up things if they need to, but it's always going to be here in this trash. Okay, let's go back. So that's user access. Control panel, you saw how I gave a control panel to Sam over here. But let's go to my dashboard here just so you can see the control panel a little more. So if I'm the manager of admin finance and I have a control panel for this position, I then see all of the people underneath me in management review. So because I've been given this managerial access, I then see these positions down in management review. So that happens here in account administration. So here, if I click Sam again and go to control panel, if I give him access to this position, then he's going to have management review for all these positions underneath. So I click manager of operations. If I give this managerial access, then that means he gets management review for the people underneath him. Let's say this is a scenario where I'm giving this user a control panel for, let's say, senior tech, but I really don't want them to have managerial access for all the positions underneath them because there may be a support role, but not the manager. Then all you have to do is give that person staff access to that position. So if I'm this senior tech and I sometimes help these guys out, but I'm not really their manager, then I would be given a staff assignment. And in that case, I wouldn't have management review for these two. But if I went here and made this a manager and update, then I'm going to get managerial access for these positions underneath me. Now, when I assign this control panel, this person is, even though the senior tech might be the manager in the way that you're defining it, if I have this manager of operations control panel, I'm still going to be able to see into the control panels of these people down here. So control panel access is different than user access in that it really defines what that person can see on the dashboard. So I might, have read-only access to any position on the org chart, but because I've been given this managerial assignment to this control panel, that's what affects the management review down here. Now, I could have multiple control panels, and sometimes that's like a viable scenario, particularly when you've built a future organization chart, and maybe I'm the owner of the company right here. I'm the chairman of the board. I'm a shareholder. I'm also the president, and maybe I'm also the manager of admin finance. So I could theoretically give myself 3 control panels here. And then on the dashboard, I would see 3 control panels here. And how that can be useful is when you've got multiple roles going on, when you're multiple positions on the org chart, the issue becomes juggling that work, right? Because you're just one person. So obviously you can't do these 3 full-time jobs. So you need to decide and time manage yourself through that. So by having that 3 control panels, you can see that on a daily or weekly basis right here. And you could decide, well, today I'm going to do the admin finance role. Click that. You see all those processes that you're accountable for, go through and do work from this position. And then maybe every Friday, you are going to do work as the president. You click that control panel, go through and do that work. So that is just a way that through account administration here and giving yourself those multiple control panels, you can set up a way to see the work of all the positions you're attempting to fill. Last thing here, you can delete boxes on the org chart. So I'm going to delete this one. So to delete, you just hit this little red X and then you say, okay, and then that position is deleted. But it's not gone forever. You can see it's just dropped down here. So the reason why we do this, first of all, when you delete a user, their access is gone. Like there's no way for them to log in with this username and password that used to exist. But if you delete a user, you're potentially deleting all the content of what and work that they might have been doing in their control panel. So if we go back here to the dashboard, if I'm this position and I'm in here going to what I'm accountable for, and I'm going to do a one-on-one meeting. So I click this position, this process. I go down here to this custom form. I click here. I fill this out for that meeting, the person that I'm having the meeting with, getting ready for the meeting. I save it. So now I've just saved something back to TouchStone. So if someone's in here doing this type of, I'm just going to go back one more. So if someone's in here filling out any of this information for any reason, when that user is deleted from account administration, effectively that information is gone. Now you can go, you can run a report and see it all and go and download what you want to save from that. But if you don't want to go through all that, because you're not sure if you're going to need it in the future, go ahead and delete the user. It's still going to be here, and all you have to do is restore it. And then you can go and download that information and find what you needed. There might be a scenario where a certain position is filling out checklists and forms, and you need those for audits or some other kind of regulations that you're in an industry that's important to. You can go ahead and delete that user. And then if you find years later, you've got to go back and find something in particular, you can just restore that user and go back and have access to that information again. All right, so I think that's it about account administration. The biggest thing here is just understanding the difference between user access and control panel access. And just simply put, user access decides what type of access the employee is going to have, whether it's read-only or create. It's really as simple as that. Read-only or create. Do you want them to just read what's there, be able to print what's there, use what's there, but not edit or change anything? Or do you want them to help you to be building processes? Are they a manager? Do you want them to be helping you build the processes of their subordinate positions? So with those two things in mind, decide what type of access they'll have. Control panel is all about what position they fill and what they're accountable for. In the control panel, everything is read-only access. So this idea of create or edit doesn't really matter. Here, it's all read-only. I'm not editing or changing anything inside of any of these features here through the dashboard. The only way to edit and change something is to go through the 4 key functions to the process or through the org chart and a job description and go to the process tools page and do all that we talked about over the last 2 weeks. So control panel access is about what you want them to see here in this area. The only reason they would have more than one control panel is if they fill more than one position on the org chart. So on the org chart here, the only reason that I would have more than one control panel is if I'm this position and maybe I'm this position and this position. And that would only be if you built your org chart for the future and it was something you were growing into, with the ideal being that you would hire this position at some point and then remove me from it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about public processes here on the dashboard. So this public area is reserved for processes that are company-wide information. So you should be able to look at all of these processes and say, yes, this is the entire business. Everyone in the business needs to know and have access to these processes. It's not something that anyone would look at and they would say, oh, that doesn't pertain to me, or I'm not responsible for that. That's a really important definition or objective to achieve with public processes, that everybody owns these and is accountable for them. Because if it's a situation where just some employees are responsible for these public processes and not everyone, then it gets confusing who's supposed to be doing what with them. They lack importance in some cases, because if I look at this list and I see 2 or 3 things here that I know I'm not responsible for, it kind of diminishes the value of the rest of the list. And there's no organization to these processes because there really doesn't need to be. This is just well, I think it would be nice if they could be reordered in some order, and that is on the development list. Other than that, there's no organization to these because they're for everyone. They're everyone's accountability. If you have a process that's a whole department's accountability, or just all the managers, or just 2 departments, it's better to put them on the job descriptions that they pertain to, and then they appear over here in the control panel for that position. It's way better to do it that way than to lump them all into the public folder, because of the reason I just described. It's like, if I don't know I'm accountable, then I'm not accountable. If I don't know it's important, I'm not going to look at it. And it's disorganized here to a certain degree. I think I sometimes see people lumping things into this public folder because you feel like you can't see it unless it's there, or you don't know where it is unless it's there. Remember that this is only a confusion of the administrator. This is only a confused situation of the person who's building and organizing the processes in TouchStone. Your managers and your frontline employees don't have this issue, but you're making it for them by lumping everything into the public folder. You're making it more confusing than it needs to be. So remember, if I'm not the administrator, I'm just an employee, I want to be able to go here and see everything I'm accountable for in some organized way. If I've got stuff here that I'm accountable for, and then I go here and I've got stuff here that maybe I'm somewhat accountable for, we'll talk about confusing. It doesn't make it easier to find things. It might be easier for you to find things, but this is organized for the use of your employees to a certain degree. So remove things from the public folder that aren't company-wide. And put them on the job descriptions for the positions that they belong to, because then they will appear in the control panel. And it's really one-click difference. I know I can log in and see everything here, but if I log in, I see things here, it's one click, and now I see everything that I'm responsible for. That's the key, that I'm responsible for. I'm not seeing everything everybody else is responsible for. Now, if I'm a manager, clearly I can go here and see what Carol is responsible for, what Jack is, or what John is, just by one click here. Now I see what my employees are responsible for. So having said that, the value of the public area is that it becomes a place where people can find things, right? Easy things that you may need every day, you may need once a month, you may need when you're new, you may need when you have to update something. It's all right here. In new employee training and your onboarding, all of these processes should be assigned and reviewed by the employee, every single one. If you look at this list and you're like, oh, this isn't for everyone, or that new employee doesn't need to know this, well, that's a light bulb should go off, and you should be like, well, it doesn't belong here then. So all the employees are accountable for these particular processes. They're typically HR related things, like here's how to request a vacation. Here's like new employee 60-day review. I know this is only done by every employee in the first 60 days, but it's still an every employee thing. Employee satisfaction surveys. This is a good one for here. Management philosophy. We've talked about that numerous times. So this is where an employee could go and just review this. Meeting guidelines, that pertains to everyone. Obviously, the employee handbook, that's for everyone. Compensation plan. This is kind of a good public process if you believe in that open book management style, or maybe we're posting the key indicators for the quarter company-wide, or we're posting the results of profits at the end of the year, or what our plan is. Software how-tos, like CRM how-tos, or production management how-tos. Now, if this isn't software that the entire company uses, well, then it doesn't belong here. It belongs on the job descriptions for the positions that it pertains to. Emergency things, like what to do in case of emergency or an injury. Sometimes I see like HR forms here, like your W-2s, or like, how to change your withholding, stuff like that. Anything that the HR department gets bombarded with, like I need this and I need a copy of that. Well, put it here, put the blank copies here. So anything like that that is company-wide and that you can easily point to and say, it's in TouchStone. It's in TouchStone in the public processes. Go find it there. There it is. Now, these public processes are used in the dashboard just like other processes are. So I'm logged in as me right here. I'm the manager of admin finance. Everybody sees these, regardless of who's logged in. And let's say somebody told me to go review the management philosophy, or I got a notification, which I'll show you here in a second, that says review the management philosophy. I would go to it right here. I click the document. There it is. I read through it, study it, and then I save it. Or if it's assigned, I can complete the assignment. And then I go back. Well, I'll go back to the dashboard. And now I've done that. So let's show a way it can be assigned. So that whole step-by-step is done a little differently. So let's say, let's do a different one. Let's say Carol here is showing up late to meetings, not being a team player, violating or making the meetings disruptive. I would go to Carol in management review. I'm her manager, so this is my responsibility to do this. I click Carol's name. Down here at the bottom, here are all the public processes. So I would go to the the meeting guidelines process, click it. And now here's how I assign it. This only has one thing in it. It's just one document. I would go here to assign the process. I would give it a due date. Maybe I give her a few days. And then I'd say, hey, Carol, I noticed this in meetings. I really appreciate your feedback, but I want you to review these guidelines because it makes it better it makes the meetings go better for everyone. Please and thank you. I choose to send her a notification or not, and then I hit assign. Now I know that this process has been assigned to Carol. So if I go back here to her management review, I see it over here in assignments. It's right down here at the bottom. Now there's a lot of assignments here that she hasn't done yet in this fictitious account, but here is where I see that one that I just assigned. If I decide, oh, I'm going to give her a little bit more time, or I want to make my note to her a little nicer, I click this, and now I can go and change the due date, and I can add more to the notes, or I could delete it altogether. Once she'll get a notification saying, hey, Shannon has assigned this to you, and she can read the notes when she clicks on it, and she'll go, oh, okay, and she'll go to the meeting assignment, she'll read them, and she'll hit save and complete. And then it falls back down into this section, completed assignments. So these public processes can be assigned like that. Any one of these. When an employee is new, I can assign every single one and just say, I want you to review this, go through it, ask me if you have any questions. Then I know that I've done the basic training for these. If it doesn't need any further conversation, But then in addition to that, if there's a problem, if there's ongoing training opportunity or a way to help Carol kind of understand the way we want to conduct meetings, I can assign this to her. The CRM how-to, same thing. Every one of these can be assigned in that fashion, and they're all public processes. So right here on the dashboard, these public process, again, can be assigned and used just like a normal process would. Someone's asking about assigning, about putting a process in the public folder. So let's go here. So here on the dash, or in the 4 key functions, so only administrators can make processes public, first of all. This process is management philosophy, has a little P next to it that lets me know it's in the public folder. So if I want to take it out of the public folder, I just click the process and I tick this box right here. It removes it. Now it's not in the public folder anymore. And then let's say that I've decided that management philosophy is only for managers and not for other employees. I don't think that would be a good thing to do, but let's pretend. Then I could untake it out of the public folder, and then I could go right here to this link to job description and just put it on all the job descriptions it's supposed to be on. So if you're finding that maybe what I'm saying is true about you and you've got way more in the public area than should be there, it's super easy to take the processes out. You just, like I said, clicked it, removed it, and then add it to the job descriptions it pertains to. Okay, so that is public. So let's talk, we've got a little bit of time here left. So I want to talk more about management processes. This is all going to combine in its final finale next week when I kind of talk about the end of using all these management processes, or kind of recap it all. But for those of you who haven't been with us through the last 5 weeks, I've been focusing on good management and what good management means. And the reason is many studies have been done, and the number one reason why employees leave a business is because of bad management. No management, bad management, terrible managers, not knowing what to do or how to do it. I put that into the category of management. If I'm a new employee and I don't know what to do or how to do it, and I'm just kind of lost, or I'm being thrown 1,000 different assignments and I don't know how to do them and I don't know how to juggle them, that's because of bad management. So this, the incentive of creating good management is huge, because the cost of losing a good employee is extremely high. It's something like 10 times their annual salary. Think back to this scenario as well. So if you want to scale your business, meaning you want to replicate it, you want to grow it exponentially, then you need to be able to grow your own talent from within. It's not as easy as just, let's have more sales. If it was, let's have more sales, there would be way more successful businesses out there, and 85% wouldn't fail in the first 4 years. So this scaling of your business requires you growing and developing your employees from within. So this is a good approach to that. Entry level here, then I move them up here, then I move them up here. So this apprentice technician, I hire them, minimum qualifications. The better my processes are, the easier it's going to be to train that person, the less I'll have to pay for them initially. Not always the case, but minimum qualifications, you hire the person in here for a certain amount, they learn the processes on this job description, then you move them up here, they learn the processes on this job description, then you move them up here. Your development time from apprentice to senior depends on what your industry is. Could be 6 months, could be 3 years. So that's a lot to swallow, right? I'm going to hire someone here for 3 years. I'm going to pay them, I'm going to work through their issues, and I'm going to bring them up to here. Let's hope they stay, right? What if they don't stay? What if they say, thank you very much, and leave? Like, this guy's an ass, I don't want to stay anymore. So this is creating a game worth playing. And this is why management is so important, because you have to be able to grow your own talent from within. Otherwise, you can't scale. If someone wants to prove me wrong, I'm happy to have an argument with you about it. but I firmly believe this to be true, and I die on this hill. You've got to grow your own talent from within to scale. So with this scenario being necessary, you've got to have good, nurturing, training, well-behaved, experienced managers that are going to be able to take people over those 3 years from here to here. You got to have a game worth playing. So some minimum management processes are required by you. It's not just enough to say, okay, you were a manager at XYZ company. Now you're going to be the representative of my company to my employees. You're giving them a crown. So you want to really make sure they're trained in the way that you want them to be dealing and handling your employees. If your employees aren't handled well and dealt with well, your customers are not going to be, your reputation is not going to be. So this is just my way of encouraging you to spend the time that it would take to build these processes and train your managers in them and require them to use them. That's the thing, right? You have to require them to be this way. You have to require them to treat your employees a certain way. If they don't, they can't, they don't want to, then you just heard all that you're going to lose and all the problems. I think there's this real tendency to want to hold on to people because they've been with you a long time. They might be a family member. You might really value them, but this inability to management has cost you way more. So sometimes it takes a hard look at things to really do what I'm saying. These 5 processes, I think, are just vital. There could be 100 more that you decide to do, but these 5, I think, are really good. This is the one-on-one meeting process. So we talked about that early on. This is having one-on-one meetings with your employees, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Quarterly's stretching it, but I just hear the yeah buts by people all the time. Well, they don't have enough time to do once a week. They don't have enough time. I just talked to a TouchStone, long-term TouchStone user a few weeks ago, and his senior technicians do this process once a week for 30 minutes. So it doesn't have to be hours long. It could be 30 minutes. And if you really use the templates here that we've given you, like this is the template for that. If the manager spends like 15, 20 minutes ahead of time really filling this out earnestly, then the meeting doesn't have to be that long. Unless there's big problems down here, it doesn't have to be that long. Maybe there's nothing bad going on with the employee. Maybe it's just and this is so valuable. You've been doing a great job. I noticed last week how you did this and this. That's amazing. How's life? How's your family? It's just a little bit of that goes a long way. So one-on-one meeting, we talked about performance review. So if I'm having one-on-one meetings once a week or once a quarter or once a month for a whole year, then I've got a plethora of information that has been garnered in this one-on-one meeting about that employee and how they're doing. If you imagine if that agenda form had been filled out over and over again, I could run a report and look back at those and could really use it to do my performance reviews. So this is performance review. The gist of this process, and I'll click this one just to show you, is that you take all the processes from the job descriptions and you put them in here in the work listing and you give them a grade. So this further enhances that idea that we're managing with processes. So how has he been doing on his safety and inspection reports? I give him a grade. If he has been doing poorly on the safety and inspection reports, I should have talked about it in the one-on-one meeting at some point through that year, right? So if I fill out that performance review form and I give him a -1, it's not going to be a surprise. He should know that that's coming, right? Because we've been discussing it. And that's one of the wonderful things about having this ongoing communication here, because everyone deserves a performance review at the end of the year. And it all culminates to that here. Task delegation and work management. So we talked about this last week. So this is a manager learning how to delegate, how to truly delegate, not advocate, not be like, oh, you just go do that, or you take these 10 things and then I'll see you tomorrow. it's really delegate with a process. When a manager says, I'm too busy, I can't do that, I'm too busy, I can't do that one-on-one meeting for him, Shannon, because I'm just too busy. Immediately go to this, the delegation exercise. What can you delegate? What can you never delegate? What can you delegate? What can you delegate if you write a process for it? What can you delegate right now? Don't just accept I'm too busy. Maybe they are too busy. They probably are. But that just means they need help organizing their own work. So this is a really important management process, because if I'm always too busy as the manager, I'm never going to have time to truly manage people well. And you have all, I can quantify it for you. You all understand the danger in that and the amount of money that's costing you. So immediately go to this delegation exercise and help them to see what they can delegate. You might have a really good manager who just wants to do things well and doesn't want there to be problems and knows that they can do it well, so they don't want to delegate it. And they might just need help figuring out how to delegate it. Then we have employee coaching and training. Also a really great process. This is just skills. So here, there's a few work plans on training employees with the control panel and management review, managing employees in TouchStone's management review. There's this giving feedback work plan. There's a script here, coaching script. This is, again, it's all about training, teaching your managers how to have these conversations, which are caring. And I'll tell you that if they understand how to use the processes to coach with, it really makes all the difference. So the difference is me going to Sam and saying, you're doing this wrong, you mess this up 50 times, this is causing all these problems, what's wrong with you? I told you before. And Sam's just like shrinking in his seat. And I feel, depending on the kind of personality I have, it's really hard for me, or I'm just venting at him. And the other way to do it is, gee, Sam, let's look at this process together, because I know you've had some issues. Let's go over it. Let's talk about the work plan and the steps. Let's figure out where you're going wrong. Let's figure out what's happening. Maybe the process isn't right. Maybe I didn't train you right in the first place, but let's talk about it. So the tone is different. The reality of that is way different, because we're blaming the process. Maybe it is the process. But each employee deserves a conversation like that. And if there is no process, well, then you know where the problem is. And then lastly, and I know we're almost out of time, key performance indicators. Teaching every employee, particularly managers, how to evaluate their departments and their people with indicators. So a number tells a story about something that's happening. This is just an example of a few indicators for like human resources. A number tells a story about what's happening. If we have 90% employee turnover, the target's 90%. If we have 50% in the first quarter, that's a problem. Why are we having employee turnover? If employee training, we want it at 100%, but only 75% of employees are trained. Employee morale. So these are kind of intangible indicators, and these are like hard number indicators, or the opposite. So anything that can be evaluated with a percentage or a number is a tangible. Intangible is like work environment or morale. So having some amount of indicators that you can use to evaluate the success of a department, or even a person. So these 5 processes. So I'm going to show you next week more how to train your managers in these, and then how you can manage all of that through the dashboard in TouchStone. So assigning processes, communicating, getting people to review them, organizing all of this in a way that they can really see what's here. Like I've got these groups here and it's organized nicely. At the end of the day, you want a management philosophy. So I'm going to go to this management philosophy again. You want a management philosophy that highlights the key tenets of your business and what management should do and how your employees should be treated. And then you want to be able to point to a process that a manager can learn in order to achieve that goal. That's ideal, right? This is making an objective or a goal tangible. It's like if my goal is to have more sales, well, I need to count up how many sales I've had that year and see where I'm at and where I want to be. This can be the same thing. Managers manage documented processes, not people. They need to use processes. They need to go through process training, build trust, have integrity, and demonstrate competence. One-on-one meeting. You're building trust. You're relating to the employee. Engage all stakeholders, employees, and setting ambition goals. KPIs. They've got to have a vehicle for that. Manage with empathy and accountability. Delegation, really learning how to delegate. So we're going to come back to this next week and I'll go through it again. But it's really powerful when you can have goals for your managers like this, goals for management in your company, and then be able to point to the processes that you've put in place that will help you to achieve those goals. That's when you know, you really have a powerful tool here that is based in reality and is not just wishes that you hope people would take on for you. I do have a few questions that I'll answer one-on-one to people because I know I'm kind of late. Next week, we're going to talk more about implementing management processes, and we're going to get into the depths of the control panel and management review, which simply said is all about the implementation and the management of your processes. This is your ability to make your processes work. If you document processes and they're floating around in TouchStone on the internet or anywhere, if you don't make sure people are using them, you don't implement them, then it's all for naught. And that's what the dashboard's all about.